Representatives from dozens of races crowded the Galactic Council chambers, causing tension to fill the space. The normally calm and orderly council was in a state of disorder, with anxiety so high that it seemed to pulse in the air. Voices overlapped as participants discussed, asked, and demanded answers. This wasn't a typical meeting. It was called in reaction to a situation that had never been seen before. Humanity. The unpredictable creatures, renowned for their tenacity and fortitude, had vehemently declined to engage in negotiations. It seemed straightforward. The ramifications were impossible to ignore. For years, humans had established a reputation across the galaxy, a passionate dedication to independence and self-reliance that verged on arrogance. The Council had attempted to include them, to bring humanity under galactic rule, but each polite refusal, or more recently outright rejection, only deepened the divide. Now, an elder council member stood in the middle of the chamber as the council strained to accept this open defiance, representing a diplomatic species. He raised a hand for silence. Eventually, the noise settled, but the stress still clung to every posture, every tired glance. In a strained but steady voice, he cleared his throat. We have always felt that humanity would recognize the advantages of joining us and comprehend the reciprocal benefits of collaboration. But they persist in rejecting our authority as though it were unimportant. Some council members squirmed uneasily. Our nonviolent attempts to include them into our system have failed. They openly challenge us. A reptilian representative leaned forward, scales glinting under the dim light. Maybe ... Because of the gloomy lighting, they assume they are untouchable. We've given them too much freedom. They're out of control. He scanned the room, voice sharp with disdain. Is that what we are now? A council that tolerates rudeness? That accepts disdain from another member? Another representative, her tone gentler but edged with concern, spoke up. Humans are not like other species. They are erratic. They lack the respect for custom and order, the very things that maintain the stability of our galaxy. We've all seen it. They adapt to situations that would kill most of us. They thrive in chaos. The chamber grew quiet again as each participant recalled a tale, a moment when humans had demonstrated their strange resilience, their ability to turn survival into an art form. They didn't just endure hardship. They seemed to welcome it, not because they were strong in the traditional sense, but because they didn't fit into the council's carefully constructed order. Another representative, frustrated and from a race known for technological prowess, stood up. They reject our technology. They choose to remain separate, to ignore our rules and diplomacy. What do they want by rejecting us? Surely they must understand they cannot oppose the authority of this council. His voice cracked, just slightly, betraying his own doubt, but before silence could return, a low rumble spread through the room. An elder delegate from a smaller and less powerful system slowly shook his head. They don't reject us out of arrogance, he said softly. It's deeper. A human fear of losing control over their destiny. We misinterpret them. We impose our values upon them. But they're not rejecting us. They're protecting something we can't see. The observation unsettled many. Seeing humanity's behavior as mere defiance was easy, but suggesting their motivations stemmed from a completely different worldview? That was harder to accept. Still, it rang with uncomfortable truth. If we let them do this, refuse us openly, others might follow, one voice murmured. We'll lose control, his voice hardened. We can't allow that. We must demonstrate that disobedience has consequences. Otherwise, we invite rebellion ... and disorder. Humanity was dangerous, not because of their strength, but because their very existence was beginning to change the rules. If they could survive without the council, who else might try? The elder spoke again, urging calm. We've tried diplomacy, we've offered reason, but humans have turned their backs on it all. Still, ... we cannot be reckless. They are not mindless aggressors, they act with intent. And we must understand that intent before we act in force. That suggestion sparked debate. Some nodded, willing to consider understanding. Others felt that opportunity had passed long ago. They must be shown that in a galaxy governed by law, independence is a myth. They must understand. Defiance has consequences, and if they don't cooperate, will be alone, against the will of the galaxy. Then a soft voice from the rear. And if they aren't afraid of that? The room froze. No one wanted to admit it, but there it was, hanging in the air like a cold shadow, despite the Council's immense power. Humanity might be willing to stand alone. They might value freedom more than protection. The realization shattered assumptions. Refusing negotiations wasn't an oversight. It was a message, a deliberate statement, that they would not be bound by the Council's rules. As the session ended, the chamber was thick with unease. They had encountered, for the first time, a force they couldn't control. Each representative withdrew into silent reflection, their understanding of power shaken. Humanity wasn't asking permission. They were asserting their right to exist as they saw fit, and the Council could either accept that they may not win. Even the oldest races, seated for eons at the Council's high table, looked on with a mix of awe and dread, because the humans, latecomers to the galactic stage, had done the unthinkable. They ignored the hierarchy. They refused dependence. They explored and survived, not by clinging to the Council, but by adapting, enduring, and thriving on their own terms. Council ambassadors sent to Earth often returned confused. Were they rejected? Or simply ignored? Other species sought the Council's guidance like a beacon, but humanity? They looked at the beacon and walked the other way. And in doing so, they lit a fire no one knew how to put out. They saw the laws that served as the foundation of galactic society as obstacles rather than guarantees, while others discovered stability. They observed limitations, and this mindset unnerved the Council. It was acceptable to have an independent species, but one that viewed authority as a constraint rather than a foundation. That was hazardous. Conflicts on contested lands followed. Miscommunications spiraled. And humanity always responded quickly, fiercely, and without hesitation. They took action as they saw fit, without waiting for approval or Council mediation. Each time the Council noticed a pattern emerging. Humans fought, yes, but they defended. Rather than sought conquest, they didn't start arguments. Their one rule seemed to be, leave us alone. After every confrontation, they sent the same message, a straightforward, unflinching plea for independence. To choose their own course. The Council, proud of its diplomatic prowess, found this bluntness both refreshing and disturbing. Humans were pleasant, but unnerving. They viewed diplomacy as a means to an end, not a process to be cherished. If the outcome was unclear or useless, they discarded it. Without a second thought, several Council members tried to interpret this behavior. They studied human history, their cultures, their conflicts. And what they found was troubling. During wars, they saw a tradition of independence, a fierce resistance to control. An obsession with opposing oppression. Riots and revolutions weren't anomalies. They were expected. Control was anathema to them. And this insight was far more disturbing than any show of strength. Humanity wasn't strong just because they were powerful. They were strong because their sense of self was absolute. So deeply ingrained, they would rather be destroyed than subjugated. The Council offered safety. Resources. Unity. But humanity only grew more reclusive, more insistent, more firm in establishing their own terms. The Council's frustration turned to fear. Humanity's rejection was not a miscommunication. It wasn't diplomatic failure. It was conviction. They didn't want oversight. They didn't want permission. They didn't even want approval. They wanted respect. And a position on their own terms. The Council couldn't comprehend it. To publicly defy the Council was one thing, but to question it, that was heresy. Humanity had become an immovable force, and all attempts to influence them only hardened their resolve. They weren't like the others. They didn't play by the rules of unity. They weren't waiting to be led. They were already shaping the galaxy. And they didn't ask for anyone's consent. The Council had exhausted every diplomatic channel. Each offer more generous than the last. Still, Humanity's response remained the same. Firm, respectful, unyielding. As a final gesture, the Council sent a renowned representative, an expert in negotiation, to present one last offer, one no other species had ever refused. The envoy arrived at a neutral station, orbiting the edge of the human-held sector, the closest humanity would allow them to come. The station was stark, efficient, purely functional, a reflection of humanity's priorities, purpose over form, efficiency over extravagance. There was no grand welcome, no ornate greetings, just clarity. The human representative was calm, composed, focused. The envoy began, explaining the Council's offer, full membership, access to elite technology, autonomy, within reason, an unprecedented compromise. The human listened in silence, unmoved, unbling, and the delegate finished. There was a pause, then, quietly, the human leaned forward and said, "Thank you for your proposal, but our stance remains the same. Blunt, clear, final, we will not be joining the Council." The envoy was stunned. They tried again, appealing to logic, to shared protection, to mutual growth. But the human only smiled, faintly. "We've adapted to survive on our own. Your resources are appreciated but unnecessary. We don't need your system to flourish. We already have our own." And there was no anger in their voice, no arrogance, just certainty. The envoy was rattled. They tried a softer approach, appealing to unity, shared ideals, collective peace, but the human remained unchanged. Then came the words that struck the envoy to the core. "We're not saying no out of malice. We simply have no desire to cede our independence to a system that restrains us. It may work for others, but not for us." That was it. No bravado, no threats, just a principle, one so deeply rooted that